for more on the life of McCain, we are now joined by Canada's Minister of Defence, Harjit Sajjan. He attended the funeral today, and he joins us now from Washington. Hello to you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So first, I'd like to start with the day, the ceremony, the service today. How are you remembering John McCain?
Well, first of all, it was an honor to lead our Canadian delegation to pay tribute to a great American and a true friend to Canada, and all the speeches and all the dignitaries who came from around the world. It just demonstrated the impact that Senator McCain had on people around the world.
And speaking of the impact that the late senator had, he was, of course, an Arizona senator for decades. But before then, he was a soldier and a POW in the Vietnam War. As a veteran yourself, and now in government, how do you view his life?
I think anybody who has served in the military knows of the tremendous service and sacrifice of John McCain when he served, and especially when he was a POW. But more importantly, I think what we need to really emphasize the fact is that he had no malice towards the Vietnamese people. In fact, it was said in his speeches today that he led the normalization of the relationship between the U.S. and that's a testament to John McCain and the vision that he had of trying to reduce conflict by creating a better understanding between people.
You know, and to that very point, President Obama, former President Obama and former President Bush both spoke at the funeral today. Both were political rivals of John McCain. So what does that say about the senator?
I think John McCain was a person that always took a bipartisan approach, and he demonstrated this in Canada, where every year at the Halifax Security Conference that we host in Halifax, he would lead a delegation almost every year. And he would make sure that people from all parties, different backgrounds would come to get an understanding for Canada's security challenges. And every time we would have a meeting with him, he'd make sure that everybody, regardless if you're a junior senator or a senior one, more experienced or not, everybody had a voice.
And what did you make of being there in this room today, again surrounded by people of all political stripes?
It was important, I think, to reflect that John McCain's legacy, which is to make sure you have communication with all, to look at the greater good, and you will get allies across parties, and that's what he has demonstrated, and it's a good example for all of us and how we can work together in a bipartisan perspective to making sure that we represent the people of our nation. And he demonstrated that, and it was a great reflection of his legacy today.
Now, Mr. Sajjan, there's also been a lot of discussion surrounding the politics of Senator McCain's funeral and the service. And we know that McCain's daughter, for example, Megan, praised her father, but she also took a moment to speak out about cheap rhetoric and even said America was always great, seemingly speaking out against President Trump in a time, as we know, of very divisive politics, especially in the United States. What did you make of her message today?
I mean, she gave a very powerful speech, speaking from the heart about her dad. And I mean, when you put the politics aside, she talked about one story that really resonated with me. It was about when she was injured while she was riding a horse. She got treated, and then her dad made her go back, get on that horse. And she talked about the story, said she didn't appreciate it at that time, but how it had built, that resilience and how much she appreciates it now that she's an adult. And it just goes to testament of who he was, to making sure that his children were ready for the future. And myself, I've got a young daughter myself, and I want to make sure that I raise her in the same type of manner, that making sure that she's ready for life. And John McCain dedicated his life to service, but he also, we never can forget that he was a true family man and made sure that his family was looked after as well.
And finally, Minister, I do want to ask you, as most of us are aware, and certainly I'm sure you are, the U.S. President himself, Donald Trump, was not, in fact, invited to the funeral service for John McCain. He was, however, tweeting about NAFTA and about Canada. Of course, I'm sure you were paying attention. I'll just read you a small portion of that. He did say, Donald Trump, in his tweet, that there is no political necessity to keep Canada in the new NAFTA deal. If we don't make a fair deal for the U.S. after decades of abuse, Canada will be out. That's a portion of his tweet. What's your reaction to that?
As Minister Freeland had said, I mean, we have a great relationship with the U.S. Our team and her, she's working very hard to making sure that they come to an agreement that's a win-win for all our nations. And today at the funeral service was an example of what the great relationship between Canada and the U.S. and how it's been built over time, and that we will work together to making sure that we keep down that path. And I have faith in Minister Freeland and her team to making sure that we get a good deal for Canada and one that's also fair for the U.S. as well.
All right. Well, thank you again for your thoughts today on the funeral service. Again, Defence Minister of Canada, Harjit Sajjan, was one of at least 3 Canadians who attended today's funeral service for the late Senator John McCain. Mr. Sajjan, thank you again for joining us.
Great. Thank you.